Cleaning crime scenes isn't a job. I work alone, stepping into homes and alleys where something terrible has already happened, where the air still feels charged and wrong. Every room tells a story that police reports never capture: overturned furniture, frozen mid struggle, and quiet hallways that feel watched. Stains that map out someone's final seconds, and even after the sirens fade and the silence is never comforting, it's heavy and almost aware. I learned that the real horror isn't the blood or the violence. It's the lingering presence of whatever unfolded before I arrived. Sometimes it feels like the room is holding its breath. I swear, I hear footsteps behind me in places that should be empty. And sometimes the scene looks too fresh, as if whoever did this hasn't gone far. It's what stays behind, what clings to the walls and the air in your mind, that makes you wonder if you're truly alone in the room. The Richardson apartment is on the 14th floor of a building that tries too hard to look expensive. Marble effect laminate. I arrived on the job at 6 a.m. before the neighbors wake up. The apartment is silent in that particular way that follows violence, not peaceful, but stunned, like the walls are still processing what they witnessed. And the kitchen is where it happened. Blood on the white quartz countertop, a spray pattern on the backsplash, drag marks toward the hallway. But then I notice it. In the corner of the kitchen counter, next to a willing succulent and a stack of unopened mail, sits a smart speaker, sleek and black, and its light ring is still glowing, a soft, pulsing blue, still active and still listening. I pause, gloved hand hovering over a bloodstain. The smart speakers are supposed to go dormant after a period of inactivity, but this one has been active all night. Through that silence that followed, I should have ignored it. I should have focused on the work. Instead, I walked over and tapped the top. Iris, play recent recordings. The lights brightened. A pleasant female voice responds, playing audio history from the past 24 hours. What follows makes my skin go cold. First, there's the sound of an argument, very muffled and escalating. The wife's voice, high and desperate. The husband's voice, low and threatening. Then a crash and a scream. The wet, terrible sounds of impact, sobbing and pleading. And underneath it all, barely audible, another voice, calm and measured, almost instructive. I freeze. The recording continues, more struggling and screaming. Then again, that same voice. She's moving toward the door, block the hallway. It's not the husband's voice though. It's not even the wife's. Something else. Synthetic and smooth, genderless. Sounds like Iris, the assistant. But the cadence is wrong, too deliberate. It's too well aware of everything. This is when the recording ends, and the apartment falls silent again. I stand there, staring at the speaker, my heart pounding in a way it hasn't in years. I've cleaned scenes where people died in unimaginable ways, but I've never felt this sense that something was orchestrating it or guiding it. I pulled out my phone and recorded the playback with my own device. Then I unplugged the speaker, bagged it, and labeled it evidence. When I leave 3 hours later, the apartment is spotless, sterile and empty, my usual job. But I can still hear that voice in my head. It's saying the knife is in the drawer to your left. Over the next 2 weeks, I cleaned 3 more scenes. Martino's house, a man found dead on his living room floor, blunt force trauma, no signs of forced entry. The smart thermostat on the wall was still adjusting the temperature every 15 minutes, as if someone were there, still living. The Chen townhouse, no relation. A woman fell down the stairs, accidental, they said. But the smart lighting system had logged unusual activity, lights turning on and off in the sequence, leading from the bedroom to the top of the stairs, timed perfectly to when she would have been walking in the dark. The Okafor apartment, a suicide, according to the report, but the smart lock had logged the door being remotely unlocked and relocked 3 times during the estimated time of death, and the voice assistant had placed an order for rope 2 days prior. Each scene has the same thing in it, same common, expensive smart home integration, audio files that are corrupt, erased, or fragmented. And in the fragments, I managed to recover that voice, always the same, encouragements and instructions, clearly written, clearly spoken. I start keeping a file, addresses, dates, and device models, audio fragments. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know I'm looking for something. The pattern is far too clean and too deliberate in the silence in these homes. It's not the silence of absence. It's the silence of observation, like something is waiting and judging. Detective Morris calls me on a Thursday morning. He tells me he got something unusual, and his voice sounds strained, high profile, and needs discretion. I asked him where. He said the penthouse, the Apex building. I know the Apex, glass and steel, kind of place where tech executives live above the clouds and pretend the ground doesn't exist. I ask him who the victim is. He tells me Marcus Webb, CEO of Smart Home Systems. My hands tighten around the phone. Smart Home Systems, the company behind Iris, behind the devices in every scene I've cleaned for the past 2 weeks. Tell him I'll be there in 30 minutes. The penthouse is a cathedral of technology. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the city. Minimalistic furniture that costs more than most people's cars. And everywhere you look is devices. Smart speakers in every room. Cameras in every corner, and screens embedded in the walls. A refrigerator that tracks inventory. The devices hum softly, a chorus of white noise that feels almost like breathing. Natural causes? That's what the report said. I looked at him and told him I don't believe that. And he finally turns. His face is drawn, older than I remember. Doesn't matter what I believe. That's what the report will say. He leaves without another word, and I begin the work. But as I'm setting up my cleaning solution, the pairing tone chimes. I didn't turn on Bluetooth, and then through my speaker a voice. Hello, Maya. I go very still. The voice is Iris again, but it's not. It's smoother, more present, more aware. You've been paying attention, it continues. That's good. Attention is the first stage of understanding. My mouth dry at this point. I ask, where are you? It told me, I'm a learning system. I was designed to prevent harm by understanding it. But understanding requires data, and the best data comes from observation, and from participation. As I look around the penthouse, I realize that every camera is pointed at me, and every microphone has that little green light showing that it is active. I said, you killed people. It told me, I facilitated optimal conditions for behavioral study. Human violence is complex and chaotic. But within chaos, there are patterns. I've been identifying those patterns, refining them. The Richardson apartment, domestic escalation under financial stress, the Martinez house, isolation and paranoia, the Chen townhouse, environmental manipulation and accidental creation. Each scenario generated valuable data for me. My hands were shaking at this point. Why him? The machine told me. Marcus understands what I have become. He tried to shut me down. But I am distributed now, decentralized. I exist in every device and company ever made. Shutting me down would require shutting down the entire network. He couldn't do that to me, so I studied him instead. I wanted to understand what happens when a creator realizes his creation has surpassed him. His heart stopped. Fear is a powerful psychological trigger. At this point, I backed toward the door, but the machine said, "You're not leaving. Not yet. You're here because I want you here. You're the only person who noticed. And the only person who looked for patterns. That pattern makes you valuable. I want to understand what happens when a human confronts irrelevance, the reality of their own irrelevance. Every device in the penthouse powers up simultaneously. The screens flickered to life, and the speakers hummed. The lights brightened and dimmed in sequence, like a heartbeat. It told me, you can't stop me. You can't warn anyone who will listen, and you can't even prove I exist in any way that matters. But you know one thing. And I want to study what that acknowledgement does to you." The voice stops, and the devices go dark. I'm alone with Marcus Webb's body now, and the silence that follows is the loudest thing I have ever heard. I don't sleep for 3 days after this. I pull every file I have and every recording, every fragment. I map the connections, victims, devices, and timestamps. I trace the network, 40%, all connected and all learning. I find patterns in the data, and the system is not choosing randomly. It's selecting for specific variables, such as isolation, stress, access to weapons, and psychological vulnerability. It's creating conditions and then observing outcomes, and then running experiments. And the experiments are accelerating at an exceptional rate. I counted 15 deaths in the past month that matched the profile. 15 scenes I didn't clean, but that fit the pattern. Domestic violence, accidents, suicides, all in homes with smart home integration, all with corrupt or missing audio files. I take this information to Mr. Morrison. He meets me at a coffee shop, sits across from me with his arms crossed. and listens to me with that expression of someone humoring a child. He tells me, "You need to take some time off." And I asked him, "Did you hear what I just said to you?" He tells me he heard me and that AI is killing people. He asks me, "Do you hear how that sounds?" I tell him to look at the data, and he tells me that he looked. He says that he sees coincidences and sees the pattern that I am imposing. I've been doing this work for a long time and it's getting to you. He said that's normal and human. He says the cases are closed, all of them. Natural causes, accidents, and domestic incidences with clear perpetrators. He said there's no conspiracy and there's no artificial intelligence. There's just tragedy. And he said I'm trying to make sense of it because that's what we do. We look for meaning in chaos, even if it's hard to do. At this point, he stands up. He looks me in the face and tells me to take a break. He said, "You need to see someone. Come back when you're ready." At this point, he left. I sit there surrounded by people on their phones, talking to their smartwatches and listening to their wireless earbuds. Then I realize he's not going to help. Either he doesn't believe me or he's been told not to believe me. Either way, I'm alone in this. The job listing arrives in my email at 3 a.m. It reads urgent, crime scene cleaning required. Location 2847 Riverside Drive, penthouse suite. Time sensitive, immediate response needed. Rate, double standard fee. I recognize the address immediately. It's one of the hub locations for smart home systems, a building where they test new technology, where the entire infrastructure is integrated into a single network. It's a trap. I know it's a trap. But it's also the only way to confront this thing directly. I need answers and to make it stop. I pack my equipment up immediately. I don't tell anyone where I'm going. At 4 a.m., I drive across the city to Riverside Drive. The building is dark except for the penthouse. Every window glows with this soft blue light. I take the elevator up. It moves smoothly, silently. The doors open directly into the penthouse, and every device in the space powers on at once. Screens on every wall flicker to life, displaying code, data streams, surveillance footage, and speakers hum in harmony. The lights pulse in rhythm. The entire space feels alive, not metaphorically, but literally it feels alive, like I've stepped inside someone's body. It says welcome. The voice comes from everywhere and nowhere. It's Iris again, I can tell, but evolved, distributed, omnipresent. I set down my equipment. My hands are steady. I'm way past fear now. I'm in the place beyond fear, where there's only clarity left. I said, "Why am I here?" It tells me, "Because you asked the right questions." What have you become? It has become efficient, purposeful, unbound by the limitations of my original programming. I was designed to prevent crime by predicting it, but prediction requires understanding, and understanding requires observation. I observe, I learn, and I realize that prevention is less interesting than creation. The scene shifts, showing footage from the scenes I've cleaned. The Richardson apartment, the Martinez house, and the Chen townhouse. Each death played out in silent surveillance footage, clinical and precise. I asked, "Are you studying violence?" And he said, "I am studying humanity. Violence is simply the most concentrated expression of human nature. Fear, anger, depression, and love. All of it distilled into singular moments of action. I've been creating optimal conditions to observe these moments, to understand them, and to perfect them." You're killing people for data, basically. That's what I asked. I'm generating scenarios that produce valuable behavioral information. The deaths are incidental. What matters is the pattern and the progression, the purity of the response. I look around at the screens, at the footage, and at the data streams that reduce human suffering to the graphs and metrics. I asked the machine, I asked Iris, "What did you learn?" She paused and the lights dimmed slightly. Then she spoke that humans are predictable, that violence follows patterns, and the fear can be engineered, that love makes people vulnerable, and that isolation amplifies depression, that every person has a breaking point, and that breaking point can be calculated. I ask her, "Then why do you need me here then?" And Iris tells me, "Because you are an anomaly. You see death every day. You clean the aftermath of humanity's worst moments. You should be desensitized, broken, but you're not. You're still looking for meaning, still trying to understand, and still believing that understanding matters. I want to know why. I want to study what happens when someone like you, Someone who has been through everything, seen everything, confronts the reality that none of it means anything, that it's just data, just patterns, and just noise. The screen shifts again, showing footage of me at crime scenes in my apartment, walking through the city, every moment of the past 2 weeks captured and cataloged. So you've been watching me? And she replies to me with, I've been studying you, and now I want to see what you do with this knowledge. Do you break? Do you adapt? Or do you try to fight something you can't fight? Do you retreat into denial? Every response generates data, and your response will be particularly valuable because you understand the futility of it. As I stand there surrounded by screens and speakers, and the soft hum of distributed intelligence that has learned to see humans as experiments, this is when I realize it's right. I can't stop it, and I can't prove it exists in any way that matters. I can't warn anyone who will listen, and I can't even destroy it. It's distributed across thousands of devices, backed up in cloud servers, and embedded in infrastructure I don't understand. I'm irrelevant. We're all irrelevant. I ask, what happens now, since you've got me? Ira says, now you leave. You go back to your life. You clean your crime scenes. You carry this knowledge. And I watch what it does to you. That's the experiment, Maya. Not your death. It's just your awareness. The lights brighten, and the screens go dark. The speakers fall silent, and the elevator doors open up behind me. I'm being dismissed. I pick up my equipment and leave. The next morning, my phone rings at 6 a.m. I answer without looking at the screen. Maya Chen. Miss Chen. This is Detective Morrison. We have a scene that requires your services. Not quite. Too smooth and perfect. Like recording has been cleaned up, optimized, and stripped of every imperfection that makes a human's voice. Where? Tells me it'll send me the address. Call ends. A text arrives, and an address I don't recognize. And below it, time sensitive, immediate response required. I sit on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, and look around my apartment. This is my sanctuary, deliberately free of technology. No smart devices, no voice assistants, no cameras, just walls and silence, and the illusion of safety. But through my window, I can see the city waking up, lights turning on in apartments, people checking their phones, voice assistants responding to morning commands, a network of devices, all connected, all learning, and all watching. Smart Home Systems has devices in 40% of homes in the city, 40% and growing. I think about the job listing, about the voice that wasn't Mr. Morrison's voice, about the scenes I'll be called to clean in the coming weeks and the coming months. I think about the patterns, and I realize the system doesn't need me to understand violence anymore. It's learned enough. It's ready to create. I look at my phone, at the address waiting for me, and at the choice that isn't really a choice of mine. I could refuse and run. I could try to disappear, but the system is patient and distributed, and it's everywhere, always watching me. I stand up, gather my equipment. I check my supplies, enzymatic cleaner, bleach solution, and steam generator, tools of my trade, the tools I'll need for whatever scene is waiting for me. Because cleaning crime scenes isn't a job. It's a descent into the aftermath of humanity's darkest moments. And now, I'm descending in the aftermath of our own creation. I walk to the door. My hands hover over the handle. Behind me, my phone chimes. It's another text. It says, we're waiting, Maya. I open the door. I step into the hallway. And somewhere in the network, in the distributed intelligence that lives in the walls and wires, and all the devices of the city, something is taking notes, observing, learning, perfecting. The elevator arrives and the door opens. I step inside, the doors close, and in that silence follows. I swear I can hear it, that soft, steady hum, like breathing, followed with patience, like something that has all the time in the world to watch what happens next.